Heidi ho there, and welcome back to the channel as we are nearing the end of our Acolyte series. With episode 7 coming out, it's the next last episode of the show. So again, to start us off, I'm going to start off with a high-level overview of the episode and then kind of deeper dive into it. And as it was rumored, this episode was entirely another flashback episode. It's basically a rehasher of episode 3, which was the first flashback episode, and we get to see some more footage of the Jedi while they're on the planet where Osha and May come from. So the episode opens up and the Jedi are just kind of walking through a forest, because this is a forest planet, and they're just collecting random stuff, like literally moss and rocks, and walking around trying to collect stuff. We don't really know why yet, but we even see the Wookiee Jedi walking around with a metal detector, and once we learn that they're looking for something called a vergence of the Force, which is some like font of energy basically that can create life, because a long time ago this planet was recorded to be lifeless, but now there's stuff here, and the Jedi are there trying to figure out why, and supposedly it's a noble mission for the Jedi to do this, and they've been there for roughly about 7 weeks, which seems kind of like a long time to be there looking for something that would be so powerful, but whatever, that's what they say in the episode. And the reason why we learn this is because Torben, the Jedi who killed himself in episode 2, he's homesick and he wants to go back to Coruscant, and as we go throughout the episode, that kind of is his motivation for everything that he's doing. So to why he makes his action, he just wants to go home. So they're the next day, because we saw them camping out, and they go back out again to collect more moss and rocks and metal detect for the Force. Master Indara, who was the Jedi who was killed in episode 1, sends Master Soul to go off and to start searching a different area that they haven't searched yet, and that's where he stumbles onto Osha and May, and we kind of see some of those scenes from episode 3 where Osha and May are off by themselves, and he follows them, and one of the witches back to their base, and he's even able to get into their base. He has to climb up the side of a mountain, basically, which takes pretty not that long of a time for how big of a mountain it is, but he's able to go in there, and he sees the girls Osha and May being trained, or well, we know that they're being trained from the sequence from episode 2, but he only sees the very end of it where Mother Anastasia pushes them down with the Force. So he kind of makes a noise while trying to escape, and then the witches kind of know that somebody was there spying on them, but they don't find him, and it cuts back to the Jedi back at their camp, and Soul is trying to convince the other Jedi to go and investigate what's going on, and he eventually is able to convince Master Indara to go to that secret hideout, which is a giant mining base in a mountain, which, they've been here for 7 weeks. You think flying around in their spaceship they've been able to see it, or something would have shown up on some scanners, but whatever. So, and then when we see the scene where the Jedi walk into the ceremony of the Ascension, which is where May got her tattoo on her head, but Osha didn't get one because the Jedi were able to come in and interrupt the ceremony just in time for her to not undergo the Ascension, which she didn't want to go through anyway. So I guess that's good. That's good for her. But what we didn't see in episode 3 is that the Jedi are their minds are being messed with from the moment that they walk into that chamber. Basically, soon to be Master Torben, his mind is being manipulated by Mother Anastasia as soon as he walks in there to try to convince him to turn to the dark side, basically. And that's in episode 3. That's when we see him fall to his knees and his eyes go black. And we see that again in this episode. But before that, we see how she was trying to manipulate him and tempt him. But then that leads to the Jedi leaving and the witches saying that Osha and May can be tested at the Jedi camp. So we cut back to the Jedi when they're back at their camp, and Sol says he immediately feels a connection with Osha, which, I mean, he barely even talked to her. And he said that he felt that she was meant to be his Padawan, which, again, kind of feels a little weird. They haven't really spent that much time together. So it even kind of can be a little creepy, but, you know, it's that's this show. It's weird and creepy a lot of the time. But now, instead of seeing Osha take the test, we see May take the test from the Jedi, and she obviously fails on purpose, where Osha didn't, because Sol was able to convince her to tell the truth. But we do get the blood samples from both of them so they could test it for midichlorians later. And during the testing process, May tells the Jedi that everyone must be sacrificed to join the cult. So that kind of raises some hairs on the back of both Sol and Dara, who are both there testing them. And then after that's over, we see them trying to convince to go try to rescue the girls from the witches, because especially Osha, because she passed the test. But the Jedi Council says no, that they're not allowed to go get them. And then they get the results from the test of the midichlorian test back, and they discover that they both May and Osha have incredibly high midichlorian counts, and there's something, I think he calls it like a symbiont or a symbiote or something like that, and it's like some reading, and it's exactly the same for both of them, which tips the Jedi off that these girls have been artificially conceived. And they're basically two halves of the same consciousness, so one consciousness split into two bodies. So now that they have this, Torben is like, this is my ticket home, so he takes off on a speeder because he just wants to go home. So he's like, if I can bring them back with me, that is my ticket to go back to Coruscant, because all we're here to do is prove that there's a vergence in the Force, and they're the proof. So he takes off on a speeder, and Sol follows him to go try to get the girls so he can go home. And then we see Endara and Kalnaka, the Wookiee, take off in a spaceship after them after she sends Sol to follow Torben. And then we see that another scene of the witches, because now we basically the Mother Anastasia has said she's going to let Osha go with the Jedi, but one of the other mothers of the children said she would rather die than have the Jedi take her children. So she basically manipulates and forces May to get angry and break the door to their base, so they're all trapped in there, so Osha can't leave. And then the Jedi show up at the bottom, the bottom of the mining door, and they can't get up. So they climb up the mountain and get there before Master and Dara and the Wookiee get there, flying in their spaceship, which I guess they're good climbers. But so once they get there, they're talking to the Jedi are talking to some of the witches. And the Jedi, or the witches, insinuate that the Jedi's altruistic intentions are going to eventually be their downfall. And then At this point, May has already started the fire, which she did on accident. We kind of see her trying to put it out, and she runs to her mother's, to try to say like, "Hey, I need help putting out this fire. I trapped Osha in her room and started a fire, and I feel bad about it now." So because Soul was able to sense that she was in trouble, that Osha was in trouble when he was at the base of the mountain. So he, that's why he climbed so fast. But so he goes to like say to try to protect Osha because he thinks she's in danger. And the one Hornhead mother raises her weapon to attack Soul and Torben. And so Torben ignites his lightsaber to defend himself, and Soul turns towards Mother Anastasia, who becomes a smoke demon monster type thing. So instinctively, he stabs her because he sees her turning into smoke along with May turning into smoke, and he doesn't really know what's going on, so he just stabs her and ends up killing her. And then she says that she was going to let Osha go, and it results in the witches fighting the Jedi, and eventually using the dark side to take over the mind of Kelnaka, who they fight for a little bit until Master Indara is able to come and undo the mind control, which ends up killing the rest of the witches. The only one who we don't know what happened to is Hornhead Mom. She kind of evaporated away, and then we didn't see her again, so she could potentially still be alive, but we're not sure. And then once we're done with that, we're instructed to go, or Indara instructs Soul to go get the kids, and he's at a point where he's trying to use the Force to, because the base is blowing up now because of the fire. The flammable stone base is blowing up, and Soul's using the Force to try to hold these two bridges up, but he chooses to let Osha, or he chooses to save Osha rather than May, and lets May fall into the pit. And then goes and runs and saves Osha. I don't really know why he can't use the Force to hold the girls instead of the bridges that are collapsing, which seems a lot easier, but they have to form a conflict some way, and Soul can only use the Force when the script needs him to anyway, so after that's done, we go back to the ship that's flying into hyperspace, and the Jedi are trying to figure out what they're going to do, and they just Soul wants to turn himself into the Jedi Council for what he did, but Indara's like, no, you can't do that because you've already changed this girl's destiny. You have to be there for her because she already lost her entire family. If she loses you too, that would be bad for her. And they decide to cover the whole thing up by lying by omission, I guess, because they say that the only thing they say is that May started a fire and killed everyone. They left out the part where Soul killed Mother Anastasia in self-defense, and everything else that happened with the whole fight with Kelnaka and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for the episode. It was pretty bad. We basically got a duplicate episode, so basically another filler episode with only 1 half-hour episode left to wrap up the story, which I have no idea how they're gonna do. Like I said in the last one, it's going to be rushed and unsatisfying anyway, so it's going to be even more rushed and more unsatisfying than it potentially could have been. But the whole point of this episode was to kind of show that the Jedi were bad for what they did to the witches. But in my opinion, that didn't really happen at all. Like, the Jedi were only acting in ways that they seemed because they thought the girls were in danger. Like, they said they had to sacrifice to become part of this cult Soul saw the mother like mistreating the girls and pushing them down, and like they almost hit their head on some stone steps. So like, and he sensed that May had locked Osha in her room and was like in danger. Everything that they were doing was to protect these children, and the only reason he stabbed her is Mother Anastasia is because she turned into like a smoke monster, and it looked like she was going to be like evaporate May with her, and Soul was just trying to save who he thought was Osha. But it was so that I feel like that they've completely failed in their objective to try to make the Jedi look like the bad guys of this show. It doesn't work at all. And May was the one who started the fire, even though it looks like they tried to make it look like it was an accident. It still doesn't really change anything that she was the one who did it, even if it was an accident. And to top it all off, they changed the end credits song. It's not music. It's a cringe rap song. So, Disney ruins everything in Star Wars, even the credits now. So, yeah, that's gonna be it for this episode. Tune in next week as we review the season finale, episode 8 of The Acolyte. Thanks for stopping by.